The sun shone brightly over the beach, casting a warm glow on the golden sand. Isolde Voss lounged on her oversized towel, surrounded by laughter and the soothing sound of crashing waves. Her friends chatted excitedly, their voices blending with the melody of summer. Isolde felt like a queen, her perfectly manicured nails glimmering in the sunlight, each one a testament to her high standards and attention to detail. "Isolde, you have to try this drink." One of her friends, Tara, shouted joyfully, holding up a colorful cocktail adorned with a tiny umbrella. With a smile, Isolde took the drink, savoring the fruity flavor. The day seemed perfect, a little slice of paradise. But paradise can be fragile, and soon, that fragility would show itself in the most unexpected way. As the laughter continued, Mirella, Isolde's nail technician, approached with a small kit in hand. "Ready for your touch-up?" she asked, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. Isolde nodded, her heart racing with excitement for the pampering that awaited her. Mirella began to work, and for a moment, everything felt right in Isolde's world. But then, disaster struck. As Mirella reached for a new color, her hand slipped, and with a sharp snap, one of Isolde's perfect nails shattered. "What did you do?" Isolde's voice rose, cutting through the laughter and chatter. The beach suddenly felt silent, all eyes turning to her. "I'm so sorry, Isolde. I didn't mean to," Mirella stammered, panic flashing across her face. "Didn't mean to. You ruined it." Isolde's words dripped with venom, her anger boiling over. "How could you be so careless? Do you even know how hard I work to keep these nails perfect?" Mirella's cheeks flushed red, humiliation washing over her. "I'll fix it, I promise," she said softly, her voice barely above a whisper. But Isolde was not listening. "You think this is just a job for you? This is my life," she snapped, her tone harsh and unforgiving. The air grew thick with tension as her friends shifted uncomfortably, glancing at one another, unsure of how to respond. "Isolde, maybe you should just—" Tara started, but Isolde cut her off. "Stay out of this," she barked, her eyes blazing. The group fell silent, the joy of the day evaporating like the tide retreating from the shore. In that moment, Isolde's arrogance shone through like a glaring spotlight, revealing the dark underbelly of her character. She felt powerful, in control, but the price of that power was the shame she had just thrust upon Mirella. As Mirella stood frozen, tears welling in her eyes, Isolde turned her back, dismissing the woman who had tried so hard to make her feel special. "I don't want to see you again. You're fired," Isolde declared, her voice cold and final. Gasps erupted from her friends, and the beach felt smaller, the sound of the waves less comforting. Isolde walked away, the echoes of her own cruelty ringing in her ears, unaware of the storm she had just unleashed. Mirella's shoulders slumped, her heart heavy with the weight of Isolde's words. It was not just a broken nail. It was a moment that would ripple through both their lives in ways Isolde could not yet fathom. The laughter and joy that had filled the day were gone, replaced by a chilling silence that hinted at the consequences of arrogance and pride. As the sun dipped lower in the sky, casting long shadows over the sand, Isolde felt a fleeting sense of satisfaction. Little did she know, the real impact of her actions was just beginning to unfold, and the consequences would reach far beyond the beach and her broken nail. Isolde Voss sat in the sun, her friends chatting happily around her. The beach was a beautiful escape, the waves crashing gently against the shore, but Isolde's mind was far from peaceful. The moment Mirella had broken her nail, everything had changed. The anger that had surged through her felt justified, and firing Mirella seemed like the right choice, a decision made without a second thought. "Can you believe that girl?" Isolde exclaimed, her voice sharp. "She ruined my entire day." Her friends nodded, their expressions a mix of sympathy and amusement. "You have every right to be upset, Isolde," one friend said, trying to reassure her. "It's just a nail, though. Maybe it was an accident." "An accident? She should have been more careful," Isolde snapped, her eyes blazing. She was so caught up in her anger that she failed to see the concern in her friend's eyes. Later that evening, Isolde found herself alone in her luxurious apartment. The waves of the beach seemed a distant memory. As she sat in silence, her mind drifted to Mirella. A flash of guilt flickered within her, but she quickly pushed it away. "I did what I had to do," she muttered to herself, trying to convince herself it was true. But the truth was, she had no idea what Mirella's life was like. The image of the nail technician flashed before her eyes, the tired eyes, the worn hands, the way she had hurried to fix Isolde's nails. Isolde had seen Mirella as just another service worker, someone there to cater to her needs. In that moment, a memory from the past began to surface. Mirella had spoken about her daughter once, a little girl who was often sick and needed care. Isolde had nodded politely, but she had never really listened. "Single mothers have it tough. I can't imagine," Isolde had said dismissively, brushing off the topic. Now, it felt like a weight pressing down on her. The next day, Isolde met her friends for brunch. As they sat around the table, the atmosphere seemed different. Her friends exchanged glances, and the conversation felt strained. "Isolde, do you think you were too hard on Mirella?" one friend finally asked, breaking the silence. "Too hard? She deserved it," Isolde snapped, her voice rising. "She needs to learn her lesson. You can't just break someone's nail and expect no consequences." "But she's a person, Isolde. She has a life outside of your nails," her friend replied gently. "Maybe you should think about how your actions affect others." Isolde felt a twinge of irritation. "I'm not the bad guy here," she insisted. "I'm just holding her accountable." As the brunch continued, Isolde's friends began to withdraw, their support wavering. Whispers of doubt filled the air, and Isolde felt a flicker of unease. Hadn't they always supported her? Why were they questioning her now? Days turned into a week, and Isolde's anger began to fade, replaced by an unsettling feeling of emptiness. She watched the news one evening and caught a glimpse of a story about a struggling single mother. The woman's face looked so familiar. It was Mirella. Isolde's heart sank as she listened to the reporter speak. "This mother is fighting to support her sick child," the voice echoed through the room. "She is looking for work after losing her job." Isolde's breath caught in her throat. She had not considered the reality of Mirella's life. The weight of her decision pressed heavily on her chest. "What have I done?" she whispered, the words barely audible. As she lay in bed that night, Isolde couldn't shake the image of Mirella from her mind. The anger that had once filled her was replaced by a deep sense of regret. She had acted without thinking, and now someone was suffering because of it. With each passing day, Isolde became more aware of the emotional toll her actions had taken on both herself and Mirella. The laughter that once filled her life felt hollow. She had everything: wealth, friends, beauty, but it all felt meaningless now. The glamorous lifestyle she had enjoyed began to seem like a mask hiding a deeper truth. Isolde sat up late one night, staring out at the city lights. "I need to make this right," she thought, a new determination bubbling within her. But how could she face the damage she had caused? The question lingered in her mind, waiting for an answer. The fallout from her decision loomed, and Isolde knew she had to confront it sooner or later. As the days went by, Isolde Voss felt a heavy weight settle in her chest. The sun still shone brightly, and her friends continued to invite her to lavish parties and beach outings. But beneath the surface of her glamorous life, a storm brewed within her. She could not shake off the guilt that lingered since she fired Mirella. One afternoon, while sipping a drink with her friends, Isolde overheard a conversation at the next table. Two women were talking about Mirella. "Did you hear about her child?" "He's been really sick," one woman said, her voice filled with concern. Isolde's heart sank. She leaned closer, trying to catch every word. "And now, without her job, I can't imagine how she's managing," the other woman replied. "It's just so unfair." Isolde's stomach twisted. The reality of Mirella's struggles hit her hard. She had been so caught up in her own anger that she had not thought about the consequences of her actions. The thought of a sick child made her feel sick too. That night, Isolde lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. The guilt wrapped around her like a heavy blanket. She thought about Mirella, a single mother trying to make ends meet. The image of Mirella's face, filled with humiliation when Isolde lashed out, haunted her. "I was so cruel," Isolde whispered to herself, tears filling her eyes. "What have I done?" The next day, she sat in front of her mirror, applying her makeup for a party. But instead of feeling excited, she felt a deep sense of emptiness. The vibrant colors of her lipstick and eyeshadow did not match the dull ache in her heart. "Why can't I just forget about it?" she muttered, frustration bubbling inside her. She wanted to dismiss the guilt and go on living her life. But it was impossible. As she left for the party, she passed by a small cafe where she had seen Mirella working before. A thought struck her. What if she went in and talked to Mirella? Could she face the woman she had hurt so deeply? "No," she said to herself, shaking her head. "I can't do that." But as the days turned into weeks, Isolde found herself thinking about Mirella more often. She learned more about her life through whispers and conversations among friends. Mirella had 2 children, and one was sick. Isolde realized that her actions had not just affected Mirella, but also innocent children who depended on their mother. One evening, while scrolling through her phone, Isolde stumbled upon a photo of Mirella's children. They were smiling, their faces bright with joy. The contrast between their happiness and the pain Isolde had caused felt unbearable. "I need to do something," Isolde finally said, her voice steady. "I can't just sit back and let this happen." But what could she do? She was unsure, her pride still a barrier. She wanted to help, but the fear of facing Mirella made her hesitate. Days passed, and Isolde decided to visit a local charity event. Perhaps she could donate something, anything, to help families like Mirella's. As she mingled with other guests, the weight of her guilt felt lighter, but the thought of Mirella still lingered. When she returned home that night, Isolde sat down with a notebook. She began to write. "Mirella," she wrote, "I'm sorry for what I did. I didn't think about how it would affect you. I wish I could take it back." Tears streamed down her face as she poured her heart onto the pages. Finally, she wrote, "I want to help." With a sense of determination, Isolde folded the note and placed it in an envelope. She decided she would find a way to deliver it to Mirella. Maybe a letter was not enough, but it was a start. The flicker of remorse began to grow into a flame of hope. Isolde knew she had a long way to go, but for the first time since the incident, she felt a spark of empathy. She realized that her actions could lead to change, not just for Mirella, but for herself as well. As the sun set, casting a golden glow over her world, Isolde took a deep breath. She was ready to face the truth, to confront her past, and to take a step toward making amends. Isolde Voss stood in front of her mirror, her heart racing as she practiced her words. She had made a decision. She would confront Mirella. However, the fear of facing the pain she had caused held her back, like a heavy weight. Each time she imagined the meeting, doubt crept in. What would she say? Would Mirella even want to see her? After days of wrestling with her conscience, Isolde finally walked toward Mirella's small salon. The sun was bright, but the light felt distant, as if it could not touch her. As she entered, the familiar scent of nail polish and lotion filled the air, but it only reminded her of the chaos she had caused. She spotted Mirella at the back, her head down, carefully painting someone's nails. Isolde took a deep breath and approached. "Mirella," she called softly, her voice trembling. Mirella looked up, surprise flashing in her eyes. "Isolde, what are you doing here?" Her tone was cautious, and Isolde could see the tension in her shoulders. I came to talk," Isolde said, her heart pounding. "Can we step outside?" Mirella hesitated, but then nodded. They walked out into the open air, where the sounds of the city surrounded them. Isolde felt the heat of the sun on her skin, but it did little to warm the chill in her heart. "Mirella, I want to apologize for what I said the other day," Isolde started, her voice barely above a whisper. "I was cruel, and I didn't think about how my words would affect you." Mirella crossed her arms, her expression guarded. "You fired me without a second thought, Isolde. Do you really think an apology is enough?" "I know it's not," Isolde replied, her eyes filling with tears. "I've been thinking about it, about you and your life. I didn't know you were struggling. I didn't know about your child." Mirella's face softened for a moment, but then her expression hardened again. "You can't just throw money at someone's problems and expect it to fix everything," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I have my dignity. I have pride." "I understand that now," Isolde said, her voice breaking. "I acted without thinking. I let my anger take over. I didn't consider how my actions would hurt you and your family." Mirella's eyes glistened with unshed tears. "You have everything, Isolde. Your life seems perfect, but you don't know what it's like to struggle. You don't know what it's like to be scared every single day." Isolde felt the weight of Mirella's words hit her hard. "You're right," she admitted. "I've been living in my own bubble. I thought my world was the most important, but I see now that I was wrong." She took a step closer. "Please, can you forgive me?" Mirella looked away, wiping a tear from her cheek. "It's not that easy," she replied softly. "You hurt me deeply. You took away my job, my pride, and I have bills to pay." "I can help," Isolde said urgently. "I want to help. I want to make this right. I can offer financial support, whatever you need." Mirella shook her head. "It's not just about money, Isolde. It's about respect. It's about understanding the impact of your actions." Isolde nodded, feeling the truth in Mirella's words. "I know. I want to learn. I want to understand. I want to be better than who I was." For a moment, silence hung between them, heavy with unspoken words. Finally, Mirella took a deep breath. "It takes time to heal, Isolde. I hope you are serious about wanting to change." "I am," Isolde promised, her heart filled with a strange mix of hope and fear. "I don't want to be that person anymore. I want to do better. I want to be someone you can respect." Mirella studied Isolde for a long moment and then nodded slowly. "If you truly want to change, then show me. Actions speak louder than words." As they stood there, both women felt the weight of their past actions. The tension in the air shifted slightly, opening a door for understanding. Isolde knew this was just the beginning, but it was a turning point. She was ready to embrace the journey ahead, one step at a time. Determined to make amends, Isolde Voss woke up early one morning, the sunlight streaming through her bedroom window. She sat on the edge of her bed, her heart heavy with the desire to help Mirella. "I have to do something," she whispered to herself, trying to silence the doubts that echoed in her mind. With a deep breath, Isolde grabbed her phone and typed a message to Mirella. "Can we meet? I want to talk." The seconds felt like hours as she waited for a reply. When her phone finally buzzed, she felt a mix of relief and anxiety. "Sure," Mirella's response came back. "Let's meet at the cafe on Main Street." The cafe was a small, cozy place, filled with the aroma of freshly brewed coffee. Isolde arrived early, her nervousness making her fidgety. She looked around, her eyes landing on the people chatting and laughing, their lives seemingly untouched by turmoil. "I used to be like that," she thought, feeling a pang of loneliness. When Mirella arrived, Isolde noticed the tired lines on her face, evidence of sleepless nights and worry. "Hi, Mirella," Isolde said, forcing a smile. "Thanks for meeting me." Mirella nodded, her expression cautious. "What do you want to talk about?" Isolde took a deep breath, her heart racing. "I want to apologize for how I treated you. I was out of line." Mirella crossed her arms, her voice steady but laced with hurt. "You humiliated me in front of everyone. It wasn't just a nail. It was my job." "I know. Isolde said, her voice trembling. And I realize now how much my actions hurt you and your family. I've been thinking a lot about it. Morella's eyes softened slightly, but suspicion lingered. Why the sudden change of heart? Isolde looked down, ashamed. I've been feeling guilty. I've heard about your struggles, and I can't just sit back and do nothing. Morella hesitated, her guard still up. What do you plan to do? I want to help, Isolde said, finally meeting Morella's gaze. I know it won't undo what I did, but I can offer financial support. I want to help with your bills, anything you need. Morella blinked in surprise. You want to give me money? Just like that? It's not just about money, Isolde replied, her voice firm. I want to be there for you, to support you emotionally too. I want to understand what you're going through. Morella studied Isolde, her expression softening. It's a nice offer, but it feels strange coming from you. I understand, Isolde said, her heart racing. But I mean it. I want to change. I want to be a better person. As they spoke, Isolde began to see the weight Morella carried. She learned about the challenges of being a single mother, the sleepless nights, and the fear of not being able to provide for her child. Isolde felt a growing sense of empathy. I can't imagine how hard that must be, she said softly. Morella nodded, her voice barely above a whisper. It's tough. Some days I feel like I'm drowning. Isolde's heart ached for her. I want to help lift some of that weight. We could work together to find solutions. Morella looked thoughtful, her defenses slowly lowering. Maybe, but it will take time for me to trust you. I understand, Isolde said, feeling a sense of hope. I'm willing to do whatever it takes. As their conversation continued, Isolde discovered more about Morella's life, the small joys and the big struggles. She began to feel a bond forming between them. Each story Morella shared chipped away at Isolde's own insecurities, revealing her desire for genuine connections. Before they parted ways, Morella finally smiled, a small but genuine expression. Thank you for reaching out. It means a lot. Isolde walked away from the cafe feeling lighter. She now understood that the journey of redemption was not just about making amends. It was also about learning, growing, and forming real connections with others. As she stepped into the sunlight, Isolde felt a flicker of joy. She was ready to embrace this new path. Isolde Voss stood in front of the mirror, her heart racing. Today was the day she would face the community and acknowledge the pain she had caused. She looked at her reflection, searching for the woman she wanted to be. The luxurious life she had led felt distant now, overshadowed by the weight of her past actions. As she stepped into the community center, she felt the buzz of conversation around her. Friends and neighbors filled the room, their eyes darting toward her. Whispers floated through the air, a mix of curiosity and judgment. Isolde took a deep breath, reminding herself of the purpose of this gathering. She was here to make amends. Isolde, a familiar voice called out. It was Clara, one of her longtime friends. Clara approached with a warm smile, but Isolde could see the concern in her eyes. Are you ready for this? I think so, Isolde replied, her voice trembling slightly. I just hope they understand. They will, if you speak from your heart, Clara encouraged, placing a reassuring hand on Isolde's shoulder. With Clara's support, Isolde made her way to the front of the room. She could see Morella sitting in the back, looking uncertain. The sight of her made Isolde's heart ache. She knew that Morella had suffered because of her arrogance. It was time to change that. Thank you all for being here today, Isolde began, her voice steadying as she spoke. I know I have hurt many of you, especially Morella. She glanced at Morella, who met her gaze with a mix of surprise and caution. I want to apologize for my actions. I acted in anger and let my pride blind me, Isolde continued. I never considered the impact of my words and decisions on others. She took a deep breath, feeling the weight of her confession. Morella, I am truly sorry for what I did to you. You did not deserve that treatment. Morella's eyes filled with tears as she nodded slowly. "Thank you, Isolde. It means a lot to hear you say that," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. Isolde felt a sense of relief wash over her. She was finally taking responsibility for her past. "I have learned that kindness and empathy are more important than any superficial part of my life. I want to be better, not just for myself, but for those around me." The audience listened intently, and Isolde could see a shift in their expressions. She continued, "I have realized that true fulfillment comes from meaningful relationships, not from wealth or status. I want to connect with others in a way that brings joy and support." As she spoke, a few people in the crowd began to nod in agreement. She saw Clara smiling proudly, and it gave her strength to continue. "I promise to support Morella and anyone else I have hurt. I want to learn and grow from this experience." After Isolde finished, the room was silent for a moment. Then, a voice broke through the stillness. "Thank you for your honesty, Isolde," an older woman said. "It takes courage to admit our mistakes." Others began to speak up, sharing their own experiences of learning and growing. Isolde felt a wave of connection wash over her. She was not alone in her struggles. The community began to see her in a new light, recognizing her efforts to change. Morella stood up, wiping her tears. "I appreciate your words, Isolde. It's not easy to admit when we are wrong, but I believe we can all learn from this." Isolde smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her heart. "Together, we can create a more compassionate community. Let's support each other." As the gathering continued, Isolde felt lighter. The burdens of her past started to fade away, replaced by hope and a sense of purpose. She had embraced a new path forward, one filled with kindness, understanding, and genuine connections. As she left the community center, Isolde looked up at the sky, a smile on her face. She was committed to never forget the lessons she had learned from her indulgence. With each step, she felt stronger, ready to face whatever came next, determined to become the person she was meant to be. Share this story if you believe that redemption and kindness can transform lives. Leave a comment about a time when you faced your own challenges and found the courage to change. Subscribe to our channel for more inspiring stories like this one.